and discuss right off the bat, or how you would like to go forward?
Well, no, I'm glad we're meeting and everything. It's, just to open the dialogue on what we might be thinking, and which I think it's been lacking evidently in the past. And hopefully we can get something positive, out of this meeting and know where you're coming from and where maybe we want to go, or where we can envision going. And that's, where we're at.
Okay.
I mean, do you want to open up on just subjects, or?
I can, does the staff have anything?
Yeah, I got a couple of quick slides on where we were and what we have been working on, and maybe that'll give you some opening for dialogue on that. Just real quick, because I know we were trying to be efficient with our time. Just rolling back to what we've done so far, the first thing we did is there was what I call a lost ordinance that made it all the way through the planning commission onto the board of commissioners, but somehow never got recorded. So we backed up and helped to take care of that one in 2020. And so it returned to public hearing after a 2 or 3 year hiatus, and board of commissioners adopted that. That was our first task. Right above that in the purple line, I forgot, was the most important thing, and that was to adopt an official zoning map. We spent almost a year working on parcels that had never been zoned. For some reason, they were left white in the zoning map, and then identifying what your official map was, and then having that adopted. So those were the two very first things that they worked on. And then the last 2 rows are, we identified what your effective dates are for your zoning map, and what your effective dates were for things that are called non-conforming lands, to recognize them as being lawful for permitting, because your previous code said they weren't allowed to have a permit, when in fact they are, because they're recognized as grandfathered. And then the last slide was defining a residence, which came out of our struggle bearer hearings of 2020, I think it was. And so that one was adopted summer of last year. And then rolling forward, I can. The code enforcement, which is before the Board of Commissioners, and we'll probably have some time to talk about that tonight. The flood damage prevention, you heard a quick bite of what that is. That comes before the Board of Commissioners on the 30th. And then the repeal of the overlay, which you heard the storyline about tonight. And then the items that P&Z has been working on is an overhaul of the subdivision ordinance to make it more efficient, fewer public hearings for simple things like lot adjustments, the private road standards, which we shared with the board, the work that P&Z has done, allowing placement permits to be transferable. So right now it says they're not transferable. So if you have a spec home and you want to sell it during its process, right now the code says you can't. Some requests by citizens to look at the RV cabin recreation and junkyard standards. Procedural notices that we are aware of that need to be tuned up to the state code requirements, and specificities for density. Those are just some quick things that we've been talking about. So I open it back up to the chairs to lead us.
All right, well, you can see on there, there's just a handful of some of the things that we've done some preliminary work on. There's a lot in our ordinance, and I'll be quite frank, that is needing work on. It's really ambiguous and subject to various interpretations. Sometimes that can be a good thing, sometimes that can be a bad thing. It really depends on your goals and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And just to kind of lay down some groundwork, and I think I'm speaking for everyone on the board here, but anyone else, you could, by all means, chime in. We as a commission, our goal is to serve you in an advisory capacity. And we want to put in our time and work to be successful in achieving something that is profitable and good for our community, and something that gives you something to work on. All the things that we do, we don't have the expectation they're just going to rubber stamp it. I would never want that. But we definitely would love feedback on some of the things that do get brought to you, and specificity on that feedback, so that it's not just a vague or ambiguous, we just don't like it, or just work on it some more. Having clear direction on where you'd like us to go is valuable to us. And we're more than willing to put the work into it, if that is what you desire. There's a handful of things. We don't have to necessarily go down those particulars. If you have something else that you'd like to discuss, I mean, I could talk about the most recent thing when it comes to enforcement. But first and foremost, our philosophy, though, is to not grow county government. We're not trying to make planning and zoning this behemoth that is going to be going after people. I've been on this for, 10 years now. And it has been my primary focus to make sure that we're protecting people's property rights and that we can do good for our neighbors and make sure that we're not like some other counties south of us. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, the enforcement that we tabled, I will say that, I mean, I brought it back for another public hearing.
Oh, good.
And so, because I really, this is my personal opinion, and we do have issues in the county that need to be addressed. And it's not gonna happen overnight with implementing or with having that. That's a long process. Because we do have, unfortunately, we do have code that is ambiguous. And human nature is more, it seems like more people are gonna abuse that, are gonna abuse it to their benefit, not, and that's what we want to avoid, is that. So that's my 2 cents worth on that one, on that. So as far as, I really do like the, addressing the RV and cabin recreation standards, looking at those. Placement permits also, yeah, making those transferable, that sort of thing. It's sort of like you're double dipping if you can't transfer it, if you sell the place and you can't afford to do the rest of the work, then the county, yeah, if they can't transfer it.
So you're thinking it's good to have it be transferable?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because, I mean, really, yeah, you get into a situation, building, and then you can't afford to finish it out, and then other things of no, it's life.
Or you find a buyer while you're building it.
Right,
You know.
yeah, and then if we say you can't transfer it, then that is sort of like double dipping
All right,
on the.
right,
property.
yeah, I got you, yeah, okay, no,
Yeah.
great.
Commissioner Robertson, did you want to?
Sure, I'll speak to the same point. So at that public hearing we had, I spoke strongly against the code enforcement. For a lot of the same reasons that are listed up there. We have some ordinance in place that's not very clearly defined. Now, I'm not saying that we would necessarily pursue some of those issues, but we open the door to the next Board of Commissioners to pursue those issues and make them a misdemeanor violation for things that we may not agree that should be a criminal offense. So if we go down that road, everything that's out there, and there's a lot, everybody in this room knows, would be considered a misdemeanor violation.
Ultimately, it would be a judge that would determine.
Sure, but how much money are we gonna spend to send
Well,
everything to a
if-
court case?
So, and not to interrupt what you were saying, but if I remember correctly, what we proposed had an escalation process to it. It was not like the first infringement, we're calling the DA, right? So that was one of the biggest things for us as a group is we have no intention of just starting to go out and just hammer people because they've got some $500 violation about something. It's more about giving us more teeth on the individuals who are just absolutely out there violating it intentionally because they have no intention of making adjustments that affect their neighbors. See, a lot of the complaints we get as a board it's not really even code enforcement, it's neighbors that are being impacted negatively from other neighbors who are bad actors or bad neighbors that we as a board recognize that, okay, there's a violation here, but we can't do anything about it because they've got a little slap on the wrist and then their grandfather from then on, there's nothing we can do. So that's where some of that came from.
I'm going to kind of chime in on that one
Yeah.
too, it's, you ask us to do this job, but we have no teeth behind it. That's kind of our issue, it's, we do our best to do our job. but we need backing. We need some kind of enforcement, just like the junkyards has been a big issue. You know, and you guys dealt with that, we know that, you know, but neighbors, that is the, where most of our complaints come from, there's neighbors. But we need the backing for that.
I got a quick question / comment. What I personally am looking for is specificity. And one of the things that you specified, Commissioner Robertson, pertaining to misdemeanors. In our current code, it actually has language in it regarding misdemeanors. So currently, I was trying to do like a side-by-side and see, you know, what we could be growing, what we could be expanding. And in our old code, it actually already states that misdemeanors can be pursued. It's just a matter of whether or not we actually can. Is that, when it comes to specifics, is that something that your goal is to actually have that entirely removed as a part of enforcement? And are you wanting to pursue just infractions, fines, or things of that nature? What kind of direction are you looking for when it comes to enforcement then?
I'm sorry, I still don't have a good answer for you. I mean, quite honestly, I do not. There isn't anywhere that has this laid out perfectly. And you can look any direction. There's always going to be a problem with it somewhere. I don't have a good answer. I'm sorry. And I've given it a lot of thought. And I do not have a great answer for you.
Didn't we come up with our proposed, I'm sorry.
Oh, good. Oh, okay. Let me just finish my thought.
Sure, go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, I've lost it now. So
I thought you were done, I'm so sorry.
no, you're fine. You're fine.
What we were proposing now, didn't we look at what other counties are doing when we came up with what we suggested?
We did look at other counties, but I think with the end product that we came up with, we kept on cutting things out and whittled it down and tried to come up with like a bare bones kind of structure when it comes
Right.
to actually enforcing it.
That's what I remember.
And we really wanted to parallel as much as possible our old code and just write it in such a way to where it actually could function.
Right.
And not expand it. The parts that we did expand, I think we're actually protecting our property owners. For example, would be notice the title. That way, if there is a current violation, if someone just sold off the property, at least the new person coming in would have notice
Right.
and say, hey, I'm inheriting this problem. So there were little provisions like that that actually are protecting people. It's not increasing enforcement per se, but still protecting the property owner
And
or
I'm-
potential property owner.
Right.
Caleb, didn't we also leave it to where it was at the discretion of law enforcement and the judicial side of the county for them to pursue any criminal action? Like, it wasn't our decision.
No, it's not ours.
It's our recommendation.
It's not our decision, it's the
But not-
prosecutors.
But we're not the ones performing that action,
No.
right?
But if you create a law, you give the ability for a prosecuting attorney down the road that could be overly ambitious.
I want to respond to that, Commissioner. I have said that for years. That has actually been one of my mantras, and, you know, the guys can testify to that. I have said that. I said, I've been on this for so long, and I've, put in the work to try to, make sure that we remain very conservative, and, that's always been my goal. And there will be a day where I'm not on here. There will be a day when we don't have fantastic volunteers like we do today.
And
And I appreciate that, but.
I'm gonna agree with him, he has tried to keep it conservative, but I don't want to be known as the county to build first and ask for forgiveness later. We need to be able to have some teeth to, because I've seen this happen in other counties. And Bonner County got sued big time over it back in the day. I see these 5 northern counties where they're about 10 years apart. And it's fallen true in that aspect, and if we don't stop it now, it's just gonna have to keep going.
I'll concede that that's a fair point. I'm not sure where to draw the line. Every rule that's in our ordinance or that's up there is an invasion on private property rights. You're being told what you can and can't do on your own land. I understand in a civilized society that we have to have rules that we live by.
But you also have to remember, you talk about property rights, you're renting that property from the government, because if you don't pay your taxes, the government.
Oh, no, I can go there.
That's a whole nother argument.
All right, and
You're not wrong.
So what I'm hearing you say is that your primary concern is somebody kind of, like a better way to put it, going rogue and just kind of starting off and just hitting people with it, right? Is that kind of your primary concern?
I think there's potential.
Okay. So if we flip that around, in order for us to even get to that point, we have to come to a consensus about an infraction, then an escalation of an infraction, then continue to move that down the line. We have to continue to push that before it even gets to the person that you're talking about. And even at that point, you guys would still be the ones that would push that action. We would just be recommending work.
I know,
And so there's so many layers.
Possessed at that point.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, there's so many layers kind of protecting against an individual abusing that, versus the alternative is the individuals who are in violation egregiously, they're just gonna keep doing what they're doing, and there's no one impacting that.
I would agree with that.
Yep.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay,
You know?
okay.
So when we think about having the ordinance, like here, I opened to 10.5, and this is the junkyard section. And it says, for example, just 10.5.3.1 says all junkyards will be screened. But we don't require that they be screened because it says that. And so, and that's fine. But if we're going to say, you know what, we don't care what people do with their junkyards, just for example, right? And we can do this with any of it, but if we say, well, in reality, we don't care, then why do we have this? Let's just wipe out the junkyard section and not have it anymore so that we don't have this unenforceable, effectively unenforceable code. Now, and so I guess that's one of the things that we would like to know from you all, is your vision that you want us to really cut the fat out of this thing, really lean it down to where there's not anything that needs enforcing? Or because if I have a serious problem with having that in there, taking up room on my paper and taking up time because, you know, people have a junkyard in their neighbor's backyard that's now in their front yard and nobody will do anything about it because it says this, but it doesn't matter.
And in that same aspect, we'll just send the people that comes into us to complain about it over to you guys.
Yeah, and then you'll have to deal with it.
Yeah, and then it gets passed on.
And the other part of it too is like the case that we had at the very beginning of this today was about subdivision of property for the purpose of sale. If there's a junkyard over here and there's 16 cars over here, your property value does this, regardless of who's buying it. So that still has an impact on you, even though it's, you know, it's not an enforceable thing on either side, but it's still affecting your ability to get any equity or any kind of benefit from selling the property, which impacts, again, that individual who was in compliance, but everybody around them just doesn't have to live up to the rules.
And, you know, part of me wants to just get rid of the whole ordinance.
But that's because you're an anarchist.
No, I'm not an anarchist, though. And so I was about to say, the other side of it, though, is, you know, I don't want the parcels right next to where my house is. I'm gonna be NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard. I don't want those parcels to be subdivided into quarter-acre lots and have subdivision there. I get that. And so, I always err on the side of property rights, but are we going, you know, but we as a county have to decide, because we're a group of people, and we have to decide what do we as a whole want. And we can call that whatever form of government we want to call it, but at some point we have to decide how we're gonna do that. And, you know, so do we want to say that people aren't allowed to have junkyards, or can I just park a whole bunch of cars out where everybody can see them and call it my junkyard? Right now I have them all hidden. Okay, I don't, but close, close. Give me two more.
And that word newbie is a very good word, because gravel pits, junkyards, dumpster sites, not in my backyard, you know, that all comes up all the time.
Yeah.
Well, and when you're talking about junkyards, I mean, that is so, I mean, so out there. Because you could have one person that restores cars, they're all lined up.
Yeah.
Then you have another that is just haphazard
We spent the
You asked
better
my
part
wife.
of a year
She would say I
on
have a
that,
junkyard.
Yeah.
on just defining what a junkyard was. It seems like it would be pretty obvious, but for whatever reason, it's not obvious.
No.
That's a tough one.
And I mean, like, okay, this is my pile of 10. Well, is that junk, or is it you're going to do something in 10 years to make a chicken coop with it? Like,
Okay.
Yes.
that make a junkyard?
All right, gentlemen, I'm gonna,
Sorry, go ahead.
it's okay, I'm gonna rein it in a little bit, I'm gonna tighten the ship. What my goal here is tonight is to get direction.
Yeah.
What are the goals? And give us clarity on how we can achieve them as an advisory board, be able to produce something and actually know what it is that we're producing so that we can put it on your desk for consideration. Yes, Commissioner?
I want you to keep in mind, I'm one of three, so just because I have an opinion does not mean that's gonna be the same as the other two. So if you're looking for consensus, you're likely not to get that.
Okay.
And I'm gonna comment on that. We're a board of 9, and we all have to work together too.
Sure.
You know, so we're asking direction from the 3 of you. Not just individually, but I think.
Yes, Wade?
Ben's right.
Oh, Wally? Yeah. Commissioner,
The
sorry.
3 of us do not agree. So,
Not all, definitely not all of us.
so I don't know how you guys are gonna agree either, but the 3 of us do not agree.
Well, you don't get to see all the disagreements. You know, we work on it for like a year, whittle stuff away, and then we try to, produce something. So,
We do make concessions once in a while.
Sure.
So I guess what I was going to say is, then we don't necessarily need to have consensus from you three and say, this is what we want, because then that's just, I don't know, it's a tic-tac. But what we would like is your opinions, your point of view. So Dan, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? And then we can, of course, we're going to have to balance that as well.
So that actually brings up a good point. If the 3 of you kind of are like, if you were to look at like the way the Supreme Court works, right? You have a dissenting opinion, you have a majority opinion. You guys could present it that way too, and we could deliberate that. But we just need, I think what Caleb's trying to get at is, if we get the feedback of, well, we didn't like it, talk again.
You don't have any direction.
About what was the issue?
Yeah.
We're not able to read the minutes or go to the meetings that you guys are participating in. So for us, it's kind of, we don't even know where to start.
Right.
I wrote down a couple things, as far as, but they're not with the, as far as infractions or violations.
okay, that's all right. Yeah.
And I can go. One thing that I think we need to look at in the county is finding the areas that are close to town that we can go down to 1 acre lots and identifying those so we can get starter homes for young families. But with one criteria on that is the fact that I think they need to be on a water system. Though you can't. Yeah, infrastructure, that's probably a tough one, but.
Yeah.
Prime Minister will catch up.
Yeah.
He'll catch up.
But that's one, so then, because popping holes in the ground, that's going to become an issue at some point in time, period. And I think everyone knows that, and the state doesn't want to address that. So I think we might have to take that on and go, okay, yeah, you have 10 acres close to town, you have water, then we could go down, down to a 1 acre. I don't know if that's, you see little spots of that.
Yeah.
In the county.
So are you taking into consideration creating an entirely different zone? Or are you wanting to modify current zones and increase the density within it? I don't know if that's a bad question or not.
Which is,
but-
what's the easiest way to do it?
We can debate that.
We can
Okay.
debate that, Caleb.
Well, I just want to know where your mind's at. I don't know if you're,
I would want to
You
go
don't-
for the easiest
Okay.
way, but one way that can't be manipulated.
So there's, speaking of that, there's lots of areas out there that already have, some really small zoning in there, or that happened in the past,
That was the.
You have
yes.
some
That was the
1 acre, 2.5s, all mixed in there. Maybe those are a proper place to do that.
But like you said, the water is the big issue.
Yeah.
It's
That'll-
yeah.
Water in the septic tanks.
Well, septic's been health, so
Yeah.
that's a whole, but you look at that across from Dodge Peak where Jimmy Ball built that well right next to the highway. I was going, wow, you know, it's but yeah, wells are going in all over. There's no other water. You
Right.
know, so, then you go down to Hayne Lake and look at that big water tower they put up. I look at that, it's gonna happen up here, because we have to have water, you know, but we're gonna have to have money to do that, so.
There's a lot of land around the 3 Mile area that's 1 acre, already 1 acres, but it's
Yeah, there's
not
lots
being
of-
developed. It's
yeah.
just farm,
So,
you know, there's Oxford Loop, kind of that area there.
yep. Yeah, the 1 acre, there's a lot of 2 and 3s in there. Yeah, more 2s, I would say, than 1s. But,
And I just want to state something too, as I've been listening to everything, is that like, what we're kind of bringing to you is what we're hearing from the public. You know, so that's just kind of, I guess that's our voice, you know, the citizen's voice is kind of coming to us and we're bringing it to you. So what we're developing, I think, it's kind of, we were looking at is this is what we're hearing and what we're seeing is needed.
right. And that's where, what I see with the 1 acre, where you have one, is the fact that we do need that. Because we don't have many reasonable starter homes for young people in the county.
One thing that you mentioned there, you heard, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, you, by all means, it's okay, we're pretty loose.
Oftentimes, we hear it too. What you hear from mostly is the loud minority. You don't hear from the quiet majority of people. So you gotta be careful just listening to certain people.
You know,
If you're done with that subject, I'll pick one off that I'd like to see changed.
Okay, yeah.
Flag lots. Flag lots are an irritation to me. It's a poor use of land. So I'd like to see, there could always be a variance in there, you know, if you need to make an odd shaped piece of land to make best use of that piece of land, sure. But to do it just because you want to, doesn't make a lot of sense. And I know that there's a water system out there that requires property, well, they might have to.
That's a big
conform-
problem right now.
They may have to conform to the county standard, instead of us conforming to a water system standard. Tail's wagging the dog a bit there.
Very good point. That's a great example of something that needs to be done, and yeah, I think that would greatly benefit our community because there's a lot of issues with that, and it's really, I think, harming our county as a result of that requirement. So, very good. Let's go back and forth then. You want to do the second one?
Only have one more.
Oh,
So,
Hold on.
Yes.
The problem with that is, I believe that the water company does not recognize easements,
yes.
right, for water lines. Okay, and why is that? Are they just being, have you talked to them, are they just being stubborn, or do they have a reason for this?
Tess actually got to visit with them.
So, Tess Vogel for the record. 3 Mile, who then essentially has kind of become the other water districts, like idea of how to follow. So everybody's doing it, has stated that they don't like easements because they're messy. This is the first time I've ever seen where easements weren't used. I worked for a water district, so it was surprising to me. But what was said at the meeting was that until the county changes the regulations that would no longer allow those little 15-foot, 20-foot strips, they're not changing. So they're putting it on the county, change our standards, we'll then look at ours. Because if the county changes their standards and doesn't allow that, then 3 Mile will have no other option but to then change, go to easements. But that is the hard line that they have taken, and they are not changing their tune on it.
what, wait.
8 boys.
I'm saying that.
Okay, all right. Mr. Burtley.
I was thinking, well, I'll see you and raise you. I make a motion. I tried this the other day.
Yeah, just ignore him, it's okay.
Everyone has that comic
Caleb
relief.
tries.
That's right, that's why he's on the opposite end of the room right now. Okay.
He's only in charge.
I think I like
All right, go ahead.
The one thing, and this has been, I've been approached by several people about this, is when we have our prime ag and forest, when they can go down to 10-acre lots on that and basically go on, and I know this has been, I think, approached to the farmers in the past, and in just, they can't subdivide below 30 acre lots. Because, you know, if it's zoned, if you have prime ag and forest, that they can't go below, down to a 10 acre. It has to be 30 acres.
Where's the 30 acres
Yeah, I
come
think
from?
they changed
It's
that.
just, yeah, it's just a number.
Oh.
It could be, yeah.
Oh, because
30.
we don't have that, we have
No, you don't.
It's 10 now.
10
No,
and then
no, it
160.
was put out there in the past, and what I heard was the fact that farmers went, no, because our kids won't have any place to live.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to address that, Ben. Or,
Sure.
no, keep on talking.
No, go ahead.
Because what I can see happening, I mean, right now we're at 13.5 population. And it won't take much to where, I mean, everyone can see around the county, our alfalfa fields getting chopped up. And so when do you go, we need this open space, and how do we address that? And keep population in those 1 acre, you know, those spots, and that's just my thoughts.
So you're talking about perhaps increasing the minimum density for ag forest?
For prime ag,
Prime ag.
Oh.
And forest,
and ag forest.
yeah.
Well,
And
no.
forest,
Forest.
because
Oh, prime forest.
prime forest and prime ag.
He's talking about the two primes, prime
But
ag and
isn't-
prime
That's
forest.
160.
All right.
Yeah.
Prime is typically not held privately.
Right, so,
Prime forest.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe
Prime
I'm
ag is
confusing.
all that stuff up the valley
Yeah.
that's currently splittable at 10 acre.
Yeah, that's ag forest.
It was 20
It was,
a
Was,
few
but it's
years
not.
ago, I don't know when.
it was 20 before '06 and it got changed.
Yeah,
so,
it used to be 20.
Okay,
so you're wanting to see the minimums be larger, but still allow for family members to own a part of that, to build on a part of that?
If I have 500 acres, I could always, you know, okay, here's 30 acres to my son or daughter, and they can build in the corner, that's still in production. And I see that a whole bunch, I mean, you can see it around.
Cluster subdivision?
Well, we just actually, this one might come before you, so I won't use names or anything, but we just did a pre-application on a project where they want to preserve forest land on one side and an ag field on the other, but in the center, they want to have smaller lots, well, your ordinance allows that. So we're working with them on a design that would allow that, so they have a cluster of smaller home sites, but preserving the ag and forest land. So you'll actually see this one if it actually comes.
I mean, and that's a smart way to do it, that's, you know, that's people, but we have people that are not doing that. And that's what I'm trying to say, you know, because when you take 40 acres and you chunk it up into 10s, and it's prime forest, when you're talking timber management aspects, that goes out the window. I mean, it's just tough, it's tough to do. So that's my thoughts on that. And it might not go anywhere, who knows? But that's why I look at the fact that keeping more of our timberland and our ag land.
So we'd have to almost kind of create a new zone at prime forestry and kind of, you have to map those areas out in the county where that would be,
Right.
the bigger pieces.
It's more like commercial ag, basically, or
Commercial forestry.
Yeah.
so just hypothetically, look at where all the alfalfa fields are, rezone it. Is it that simple?
Just rezone the bench.
I like to boil things down so I can comprehend it.
It's not gonna be possible in Norfolk County, you can't do that. And everything, but at least have, you know, some chunks of that, I would say. Because Chisholm Hill, how that got chopped up, and everything, I mean, that's a shame. And Smith Lake area, I mean, that is the ripple effect of Smith Lake in what has happened up there for the county, for road and bridge, and because the road is not that good of a road. Yeah, but just thoughts.
Yes.
So I may not disagree with you on that. I think there's a tool available to fix some of that, maybe with the larger land sizes, but allow maybe more in the cluster subdivision type of thing, where you guarantee that this is gonna stay outside of those smaller clusters, stay large ag. You know, use on unsuitable ground for ag or forestry, or pick chunks of it while maintaining that forestry and ag potential that's there. Now, that's very confusing and hard to do, but I think there's an avenue for that, where you could still what kills a farmer out there is they take a 30-acre field and have to do 10 acres, and now you have a 10-acre chunk out of your hayfield. Makes it difficult to work with. But if they could do in a 10-acre zone, most of them, if they're selling to their son or daughter, they would be perfectly fine selling a 2.5 to them, and they get to maintain their field forever. And they could retire by selling that 2.5 to anybody. It doesn't have to be their son or daughter, but to anybody. And they don't have to retire. A lot of these people are retiring and they don't have retirement, so they're selling out their property, and they prefer not to. And so you have ag and forestry going away because they don't have a choice but to sell 10-acre minimums.
Have you ever done a cluster subdivision up here? Have you ever seen one?
I haven't seen
Okay,
I've never seen one going through the records.
No.
No, okay.
I haven't seen it.
So,
That was that was kind of like the family exemption we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
We no longer have, because people were abusing it.
Abused it.
How are they abusing it?
You would, they would deed it to their son or whoever. I know it was abused over at Priest Lake where the people that deeded it to the family member ended up selling it and subdividing it.
Oh.
That was the intention from the beginning.
It was,
But they-
yeah.
Yeah,
Bank-
piece of
bank-
property, split it all to their kids, it all ended up for sale, they're gonna
That's
buy
right.
another piece of property.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Priest Lake happened to be Magnus.
basically, they'd have a family move in, and that was the way around the requirements to subdivide.
They cross.
Because if I
got it.
can buy 40 acres, split it into 4 10s, well, then I have to subdivide it, and I have to go through that process.
It was just a
Right,
loophole.
because I got 4.
Yeah, just a loophole.
But, man, if it's my family, if I got 3 kids, or I actually have a husband and his wife and junior, grandson, bam, bam, bam.
Okay.
Feed it off 3 different ways, and then bam, 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 sell them, but buy another one.
Okay.
And it's a workaround.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you
All
fix
right.
that?
Any other,
Well, I was just gonna say, years ago, when I first got on the board, I called 5 or 6 farmers in the valley and I asked them how large they want to go with their, because it's always been kind of thing, like it was 20, now it's 10. And that's kind of, I've never agreed with that either. And I called a bunch of farmers and asked them, and they were fine with 20, but no bigger. That's kind of was the census I got from them.
Yeah.
Well, I think the valley ground's a different conversation than
Yeah.
the bench alfalfa
It is.
fields as well.
Sure.
It is.
So I guess the question, Claire, is could we maybe dovetail this into our bigger discussion we're planning on having anyway when it comes to subdivisions? Because that's on our docket to deal with this year.
Yes.
Could we bring
Yes,
this into
definitely.
that
I think-
conversation?
Just trying to explore the idea of still giving the opportunity for land divisions for the farmer, the agricultural community, and still preserve the land is, I think, very, very big of a question, and it's also one that you can work into your subdivision. I think we would visit the cluster subdivision and try to work on that, as
With
far
a
as.
focus on land use and things like that, right?
Yes.
For this.
It will
particular-
fit into
yeah.
your discussion, yes.
Good.
Well, and I know being on here, one of the longest members here, the hops fields were involved back then when we originally did this, and that's why they got chased up north, because when they take care of their fields, they fly. And pesticides, they use whatever they use, people were griping about it. Other property owners griping about it. So we have to be real careful with the hop fields when we deal with them up there, up north. So that's one of the reasons I think we want to keep them large up there with them.
okay. So, any other issues or topics? Yes.
Yeah, a gripe of mine, and you kind of have it up there, to shorten the process. When we have a public hearing, that the whole purpose is for people to come complain about it, but we have no legal means of denying an application. It's silly. It's a waste of the applicant's time, it's a waste of our time, it's a waste of money on all parts.
So are you referring to certain things where you believe it should be an administrative decision?
Yes.
Well, what in particular do you have in mind that should be
I'm
administrative?
kind of curious on that one.
That's a good, I get what you're saying, but specificity,
Okay. Let's use an example that happened recently.
Okay.
We had a subdivision application come in, and not one thing was out of ordinance. Why are we having a public hearing on that?
I think they had 50 or 60 people
Yeah.
between the two hearings because we continued it and they had a room full that went out into the hallway of people who testified. And I think what you're saying is that it met code.
It does.
It met code.
Yeah.
So-
It met everything,
Mhm.
which, yeah, it met everything. There's no grounds to deny it. So, yeah, why are we,
there?
yeah,
There's nothing to even deliberate on.
no.
I mean, if we're doing it just to be a sounding board for the community, that's fine. I don't know what the rationale was behind that at the beginning, but it's inefficient, it's a waste.
So one of the things to consider is we have two documents we have to consider when we do what we're doing. It's the comprehensive plan as well as the ordinance. And part of the comprehensive plan literally gives us a lot of subjectivity when it comes to review of things. Not just, does this tick every box, but also, is this consistent with what the county has told us in the comprehensive plan that they want to see? So that's where some of that may be coming from. But I mean, I don't know how much that, I'm sorry. You
No,
really
you're
wanna talk.
you're
Go ahead.
fine.
No,
I was just going to state that this is the conversation that this board has had, and we've had with the commissioners as well, is when you were looking at 4 lots or fewer being created, lot line adjustments, minor notational changes, all being administrative. You don't see it, nobody does, for a public hearing. But anything over 4, that's where you wanted it to be a public hearing, but there was a little bit of the debate of, do you want it to go to both Planning and Zoning Commission and the commissioners, just the commissioners, or just P&Z, or do we do it, say, 5 to 9, and then 10 and up is a double? That's the conversation that we had quite a few months ago, it was probably back in August. Maybe at least in August.
August when we brought it to the board.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
commissioners, that is.
And then we've had that kind of same conversation where it was kind of getting more down to the details, so that's definitely what's desired amongst both boards. It's just trying to figure out where the lines are with it, and it kind of did sound, the last that this board was talking was that minor notational changes, lot line adjustments, 4 lots being created or fewer, that's gonna be administrative, like we do placement permits or our parcel divisions right now. And then it was, I think it was 5 to 9 or 5 to 10, that would go to P&Z, and then anything over 10 lots, that was gonna go to both boards. And then I believe you were also talking about looking solely just going to subdivision instead of requiring the record of surveys, that's how to break it up. So this is definitely a conversation that both boards have been having, but it's essentially kind of separate.
Separate conversations.
And just for the authority, state law doesn't require that you hold a hearing at all for subdivisions. It
Right.
doesn't require it, but it's a community decision on what they think is important for the public to be noticed and be able to be heard.
You know, the thing is with doing that, you know, it being heard as the public, is the fact that as a commission board, if we don't have any tool to just say, you know what, no, that doesn't fit in, no, it's denied, but we're gonna get sued.
Right.
So, I mean, we don't have that tool
Right.
to go, you know, that is nice, just the way it is, you can go to this, we're not taking everything away. We're saying you can go to 5s, not 2.5s, in that, but we don't have that.
So you're looking for more of a definitive ordinance provision versus just maybe more subjective interpretation of the comprehensive plan is what you're talking about. Something that's got a little bit more definition to it.
Subdivision standards
So,
for design.
were the subdivision standards so vague that that's why it was easy to pass, or that's why there was nothing against it?
No,
No.
no, it met all
Yeah,
criteria.
it did.
Okay.
Yeah, it met everything.
It was in the right
Unhappy
place.
neighbors.
It was just not in my backyard.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't blame them.
But
I
what
wouldn't
you're saying
blame
is you're looking for a tool to enable you
Put deny on it.
to deny that anyway, or
them. No,
or
no,
anything like that? I know we're
no.
not talking
I'm just
about-
saying, why are we hearing this
Okay.
if we
If-
can't do anything about
If
it?
if they have no mechanism to
Right,
deny
yeah, I
it,
follow now.
why
I
is
thought I
that
followed
process?
Yeah.
So then, are you wanting a mechanism whereby you can deny it, or are you wanting to just streamline the process?
Just streamline the process.
All right.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily opposed to that rationale either, though.
Well,
That if, you know, because, see, our zoning map is very big, it's just areas, you know, we don't see every area that's out there. Somebody comes in, I want 2.5s there, and you look at it and go, boy, that just doesn't fit there. That's a terrible place. But currently, we cannot say no to that.
So
Maybe we do need a mechanism to say no. But then we also get in some arbitrary, just because we don't like it, conversations.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. So you're talking, what I'm hearing you say is that you need some more formalized response, one way or the other, and then the discretion to make that determination, if you're actually gonna have to deliberate about it. Is that what you're saying?
If we're gonna continue with public hearings, by golly, we should be able to have the ability to say no.
Sure. Right, otherwise what's the?
Or, let's not have public hearings.
Right.
And your decision happens at zoning.
Right.
And when you say it's 2.5 acre appropriate and somebody comes in for a 2.5 acre lot subdivision, there's no no. There is no no. by
Well, we
that
have
time.
run into that
Yeah.
before, where we, as a board, we felt like we really don't want to do that, but we don't have anything to say no to.
The
So-
last one, yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Where this is gonna get difficult is you get a room full of people and you sway your opinion because you don't wanna make 50 people mad at you. And you're gonna say no because you have 50 people in the room.
We've had a couple. of
We've
these.
had, we've had
But
those.
that's not a good reason to say no.
Right.
Those are tough decisions.
Right.
So it's 7 o'clock. I'm not trying to kill the discussion. I just want to be respectful of you guys and, everybody's time. I want to, one last time, bring up, is there anything specific that we need guidance on? Is there anyone in this room, including, staff, where we need some clarity on which direction to go, what angle to take going forward? I don't want to be just kind of shooting in the wind here and hoping I hit the target.
No, I think
So-
what Caleb's saying is,
But
when
what's our-
you deny, give us direction.
Yeah, so what's the goals? What are we trying to hit? Anybody else can speak, I'm just trying to throw it out there.
Yeah, I think we're fairly clear on some of these issues that we talked about already tonight. But like you said earlier, you're an advisory board. You guys are very professional at what you do. Advise us. We want to see a direction this way, and we can say yay or nay from that. Of us coming to you with bad ideas doesn't make it a good idea.
We can fix your bad ideas, don't worry.
Don't take it as, this is what I would like to see happen,
Uh-huh.
and you guys don't like it, but you move ahead anyways, just because it was advised by us to go that direction. Well, it's not the right way to go about things.
Well,
either.
the thing is, you might get into one of the topics we talked about and go, we really don't have, at this point in time, a good mechanism to solve this. Or,
That's why a lot of our workshops have started the way they have, is because we keep finding those kinds of issues. And
Yeah.
then we get into a scenario where we don't have any options.
right.
But I would suggest that we could do it in both directions. So we're asking you guys for more detailed feedback.
Sure.
Maybe we supply them with more feedback when we're actually deliberating about what we're sending
I
them.
think that's what I was gonna ask is, when we draft an ordinance, should it come to you in a full draft form before anything, so that you can say, well, work on whatever section? I know you guys have 20 times more things that you're doing compared to us, where we're looking at land use only. But should we formulate that better, get it to you, and then back to them again?
I
before
think
we
that would,
actually
I
do
think
the
that would
hearing?
help.
For a red line level.
Yeah, I think that would help. What about you guys?
It's not gonna hurt anything.
No.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, and also, just to your point, Ben, really appreciate that. If you guys come to us, any individual or collective, don't worry, we got some free thinkers here. We're not rubber stampers, let me tell you that. We fight through stuff and we have debates and discussion and disagreements.
Yeah, we don't always agree.
So,
It's healthy.
yeah, so just so you know, because I know you don't come to our meetings, you don't get to see it, so I just want you to be aware of that dynamic of what we have here.
Yeah.
So
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
fines and penalties and stuff, and we had a discussion the other day. I don't wanna see the $100, $1,000 fine and they get to keep doing what they're doing. Need something to get their attention to where they'll stop.
That's what we've had, that's why we pushed what we're pushing, is because that's what we've had.
We want to avoid them saying, well, it's cheaper for me to pay a small fine and keep doing something
That's right.
that is hurting the community. That's, that's basically saying bad behavior is now acceptable.
Well, you can buy your way out of it.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a fine that's a one fine issue, but if you have a fine that is an ongoing, that is, as long as this is in place, then it's $1,000 a month. That gets people's attention, because now it gives them an incentive to correct the problem, because otherwise they've got this ongoing fine going, hitting them every month.
Yeah.
Or, maybe it's maybe it's $500 a week, I don't know, but some ongoing thing that gives the violator the incentive to fix it.
Okay.
And I would like to, like, that clarification, like, on the process of, someone comes forward to the planning zoning administration and says, hey, this is going on in my neighborhood. What is the process from that point on to the prosecutor? What does that look like?
So we'll receive it by phone, by written complaint, by email, and our first step is to try and verify the complaint.
Mhm.
To see if it really exists by photograph, by if we can drive by on a public road, or if the complainant gives us information. Once we have that, the first letter goes out as a regular US Post Office. And we identify what's been told to us and ask them to either abate or provide us information that that's not true. First letter. We give
14 days?
10 days. If we don't hear from them, then we go to the certified letter process. This
Yep.
is in current code and it's in the proposed code. And at that point, we advise them that if they fail to respond or abate, then it goes on to the prosecutor.
And they get another 10 days. So, regular letter, 10 days to, and not responding like, say, I got your letter, but to actually in writing, ask to provide in writing how you're either not in violation, how you're evading it, or turn in the application. It's
And we'll work
something-
with them. We just finished one flood code violation that took about a year. She had to get a surveyor, she had to prove she was out of something, long story short, but we'll work with them to give them time to provide us that response.
Yeah.
If all that fails, then it's to the prosecutor, who then decides what process to go to, through criminal or civil to abate. That's where it ends.
So as administration office, you'll tell them that if we had some teeth, say this is the fines you're looking at, you would be in contact with them about that?
Yes, we're required to tell them
All
what
of
the
that.
potential violation penalties are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Commissioner Bertling, you had a comment? or-
Well, you mentioned the time, I was just gonna say, I think we should maybe revisit this same meeting in, 4 to 5 months? Or what do you think?
That would be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no point in dragging this out. Will it give us time to work and then,
Yeah.
and think, and then, yeah, we can make this a
That is-
semi-annual, biannual, every 6 months regular thing. That would be incredible.
And if you need it prior to that, you can
Yeah.
ask for it.
Let me tell you right now, that's phenomenal. Just you guys coming in tonight, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
I agree.
Thank you very
Well,
much for
appreciate
it. It does not go unnoticed, and if we can do something similar in the future, and, it doesn't have to be every, 2 months, 4 months.
You guys need time to.
You soak things in, go through stuff, and then we can reconvene and have a conversation. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
when there's
great.
enough new stuff to talk about.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then it doesn't have to be that long either,
Right,
Uh,
right,
so-
I agree.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. Yes, Wally?
I want to thank everybody for what you do.
Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate you guys too.
Thank you.
All right, anything before I close? Are we good? All right, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.